Hi, I'm Suzanne Caldeira with Guaranteed Rate. During the day, I'm a mortgage originator, helping people purchase homes and refinance and give them money. My other side project that I love to do is my Fridays 5, where I reach out to people that I know or want to know that have inspired me. The views of my guests are not necessarily those of Guaranteed Rate, and I'm excited today to have Sally Lapides from Residential Properties, the CEO of Residential Properties, who has inspired me throughout the years, who I'm literally doing a little bit of the shakes. And I remember when I called her and said, I'm nervous to make this call. So thank you for saying yes, Sally.
It's my pleasure. And anybody who knows me, Suzanne, knows that there is no reason to be afraid of me.
Well, thank you. Well, in my Fridays 5, I love to just dive right in and ask a series of 5 questions and also have a little conversation. So I want to know, what inspires you?
Wow. What inspires me? Well, people inspire me. I am not a person who judges by money. I just don't. I mean, I'm the only businesswoman you'll interview that doesn't care about money. I care about relationships, and I care about people, and I care about people who do things that are inspiring for me. So people who stand up for causes. I write a little thank you note in my head periodically to Eleanor Roosevelt, because if it wasn't for Eleanor Roosevelt, we wouldn't have women in the press corps, because she said when she became the first lady that she would only allow women reporters to come in and be part of her press conferences, and no newspapers hired women. So they had to hire them. I am inspired by people who take a stand and to sort of move the world forward.
Oh, now, was that something that, how did you find that out about her? Because doesn't she also have a saying that a lot of people will quote Eleanor Roosevelt on?
Yeah, she says women don't know how strong they are until, women are like tea bags. They don't know how strong they are until they get themselves into hot water.
Wow.
Yeah. So how did I know about that? I guess as a female kind of entrepreneur, I've always looked at biographies of women and people whom I admire. And so I was talking about it today at lunch with my husband, that, you know, people like Shirley Chisholm and Gloria Steinem and, you know, women who absolutely have sort of made their mark on making the world a better place. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I guess, I mean, it has literally nothing to do with real estate, but it translates to how I am with people.
And now the next question I want to go to is pivotal moments. Like, a lot of people will have them in their life, or defining moments where they're like, I'm here because of X. Are there any moments or moments
my pivotal moments were 2 things that I'll share with you. One was when I was 10, I grew up in Barrington, and we were amongst the first, probably 5 Jewish families in Barrington. So I was the diversity there. And I was invited to someone's club, and we were swimming, and a man in a suit came out and blew his whistle and hauled me out of the pool, and he said, "You're not welcome here." And for anybody, that would be horrible. For a 10-year-old, it was life-changing. And it probably answers or gives background to when you asked what inspires me. I've always felt really strongly that we cannot judge based on color, religion, sexual orientation, anything. And I think that actually was born out of that. I grew up in a very loving and open-minded family. So that was that startled me. So that was the first thing. The second thing was when I was growing up, my mother and father had pretty traditional roles. And while my mother went to work when I was in high school, she wasn't working when I was young. And my father used to write her out a check every Sunday for marketing money. And I remember I went to Boston University, and I remember walking to class and one day standing on a street corner and saying, I will never be dependent on a man to make sure I have marketing money. And so I just knew from that moment on that I was going to be self-sufficient. And so those were probably my two most pivotal, memorable moments that I would, tell my children or tell my friends that really shaped my life.
Oh, yeah, that's truly inspiring. And do you find that, or did you find when you first got into the business and became the founder and the CEO, did you see resistance or did you go through any of those?
I went through all of it. People ask me all the time, like, what was it like when you first opened your company? And first of all, I was young and I was pretty naive. So I should start with that. But I started it with my former partner, Liz Chase. And it was November 1981. So we're celebrating 40 years. We went to see a bank to get a loan to open up the company. And they looked at us and said, no. I mean, they were just blatant, no. And we said, why? I mean, we've been in the real estate business for 5 years. We have track records. We're not asking for a lot of money. And they really did not express their feelings about why they were not accepting us. But they said we had to come up with money some other way. And I thought, wow, they're just not loaning us money because, frankly, I'm a woman. That's why they're not doing it. So yeah, the interest rates were 17.5%. I went to see my male lawyer. He said, what are you, nuts? Opening up a business with 17.5% interest rates? And I sort of ignored everybody and just knew that we were doing the right thing and there was an opportunity here. And I wanted to have my own business. I wanted to do real estate differently than the 3-generation typical strong male real estate firms around Rhode Island were doing it. So yes, I went through a very hard time at the beginning. And then as you build your credibility and people start to understand that you're smart and that you work incredibly hard and that you're every bit as capable as anyone else in the business, then the gender thing wasn't an issue.
And do you find that still goes with you when you encounter challenges? Do you think of what's happened in the past and how you've been through this?
Yes, I think it is the foundation which we all build our careers on, and you learn from all of that, which was good and which was bad. I've been asked before, tell me things that you failed at. I don't look at anything I did as a failure. I look at everything that didn't go right as a learning experience. And what will I do so that that won't happen again? Or what have I learned from it so that I will make the business better? If a client that I had in my early years for 5 transactions decided to go to another broker, I would literally write them a note and say, I can never make my business better unless you tell me why you chose to work with another broker. And people really respected it, and they would tell me the truth, either if it was I didn't keep in touch with them. I mean, it's shocking as the owner of a company when somebody will call me and say, I worked with somebody 10 years ago. She was blonde and she was, Give me a bigger hint. And then I think to myself, that person just didn't keep in touch with somebody. And that's why they can't remember her name. So I really solicit honest feedback, because I don't think we can ever make anything better unless we know the real answer.
Yeah, that's a golden nugget, and I'm going to use that in my business. For
Good.
sure, Sally.
Good.
Yeah. Now, who have been some of your mentors, or is there a mentor in your life when you think back?
Yeah, I'll tell you who. My mother was in this business, and she was a phenomenon as both a manager and a real estate agent. 45 years ago, she taught me pretty much everything I know about human interaction and how to be a thoughtful real estate professional. So she was my biggest mentor. Over the years, I have read books by people who are in our business and have always learned from their experiences. So, for example, Barbara Corcoran wrote a book, Everything I Ever Knew I Learned from My Mother. And it was about her first 5 years in the real estate business. And I give it out to a lot of the new agents so that they really understand what her philosophy was and how she made it and how they can do it. My role models are not always in my business. They are often role models that I just plain at people that I admire. I admired Michelle Obama. I read her books. I loved her speeches. I admired her. Honestly, Suzanne, I wake up thinking real estate and I go to bed thinking real estate. So my off time, I'd rather just read about people whom I admire for a variety of different reasons.
Yeah, and you gave some good nuggets on some books and people to follow. Are there any podcasts or any series or YouTube videos that you like to watch?
I read a book called Radical Candor. And if you haven't read this book, it's by a woman named Kim Scott. And Kim, graduated from Harvard Business School and wrote a book about how to be I hope I can say this on the air, how to be a kick-ass boss and still be radically candid. And she did a fabulous podcast that I have listened to several times, and I have bought that book for all of my management team, and they have listened to the podcast. So it's been very helpful for me to be very honest and yet have the ability to tell the truth. I had a terrible experience once many years ago. There was an agent that I knew was really ready to open up her own firm, and she worked for us, and she was doing things that just were not acceptable to me. So I called her in the office and I said, what's this? And she said, oh, that's my new real estate card. I didn't really like your logo. And I said, well, if you're ready to design your own logo and design your own cards and your own stationery, you're probably ready to open up your own company. And so can I have my keys? And it was wonderful to work with you, but I wish you a lot of luck. And she said, well, let me think about it. And I called my mother and I said, I am the worst firer in American history. I cannot believe that. I just did that. So I wasn't candid enough with her. And I learned from that experience. And then when Kim Scott wrote this book and I read about it, I thought, okay, this is going to be how I'm going to learn how to be more honest. And I have been. I've been a much better boss since then.
Yeah. And do you, again, I'm going back to the women thing, but do you find that you've ever gotten resistance because of that? because maybe you're too direct or too aggressive or
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, women are criticized for things that men are lauded for. I don't think anybody thinks that I'm very aggressive. I think that people would say that I am demanding of myself, and therefore I set a bar for everybody that is pretty high. So I guess I would say that I have not found that people have disrespected me. As I've gotten older, I have found that I do get more respect for being in the business so long. But overall, the men who are not comfortable in working for a woman have not found their way to residential properties, because I really have wonderful relationships with all the men that work in my company.
That's fantastic. And actually that leads to my last thing, which isn't really a question. It's tell us a little bit about you and residential properties.
As I said, I started it in 1981 with a partner, and we had 6 women who joined us. And frankly, they were pretty brave to come over from pretty well-established firms and join the firm. After 15 years, we had about 60 people in the company, and we had offices in Barrington, Cumberland, and East Greenwich. And I bought my partner, Liz Chase, out because she was ready to retire. And then I continued to grow the company. We now have 240 real estate agents and about 35 or 40 in staff. And so it's a big company at this point, but we are independent, and I am proud to have an independent company and not affiliated with a national franchise. And we just opened our first Massachusetts office. We are now in Westport, Mass. So I'm very excited about that. And we are continuing to grow. We have established ourselves by marketing differently than other companies. So we have 3 full-time videographers. We tell stories about houses. We don't necessarily just do it with paper and an MLS form. So we advertise differently. We market differently. I do the voiceovers for thousands of listings that we have every year. And I am married. I have 2 children from my first marriage, and each of them have an 18-month-old. They were born 8 days apart. And I am remarried and have a wonderful husband. And I'm very grateful for the life that I have been gifted.
Sally, thank you so much for saying yes to this and letting me know a little bit more about you, and being able to tell you face to face or Zoom to face that you have inspired me throughout the years. And can't wait till COVID's over when I can see you in person. And I'm going to give you a big old hug.
Okay, I'll take that big old hug. And now you don't have to be worried anytime you call me. We are now, I always say the first time is an event and the second time is a tradition. So now we'll become traditions after this.
I like that. Thank you.